Steve Harvey was in his office going through fan mail one Tuesday afternoon when something stopped him mid-read. It was a letter from a woman named David, Michelle's husband. The letter detailed a story that broke Steve's heart and made him sit in silence for nearly 10 minutes. Michelle had been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, the kind of diagnosis that stops time completely, the kind that forces you to reorganize your entire life around a single word: survival. Michelle was 38 years old, in the prime of her life. She had a husband, David, whom she loved deeply. She had 2 teenagers, a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. She had worked the same job for 12 years at a healthcare administrative company, building a career brick by brick, climbing the corporate ladder slowly and steadily, establishing herself as a reliable, valued employee that the company depended on. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. She'd gone in for what she thought would be routine tests. Instead, she walked out with a biopsy result and an appointment with an oncologist. When the oncologist confirmed it, cancer, stage 3, requiring aggressive treatment, Michelle felt her entire world shift on its axis. Everything she'd been planning, everything she'd been building, seemed suddenly irrelevant compared to the simple goal of staying alive. When she received her cancer diagnosis, her immediate concern wasn't her career advancement or her professional achievements. It was her survival. But the reality of cancer treatment is brutal and unforgiving. It's not just about showing up to medical appointments once a week. It's about chemotherapy sessions that last hours, leaving you completely depleted for days afterward. It's about losing your hair, your energy, your sense of yourself. It's about going through radiation treatments and surgery and recovery periods. It's about needing someone there to drive you to appointments, to sit with you during treatment, to help you when you're too weak to care for yourself, to be emotionally present while you're going through the most frightening experience of your life. Michelle asked for extended leave from her job. She had a conversation with her supervisor, explaining her cancer diagnosis. She explained that she would need flexibility to attend medical appointments. She explained that she would need time to recover from treatments. She was a model employee asking for reasonable accommodation during a legitimate medical crisis. And her company denied her request, not explicitly, not in a formal letter saying no, but through a series of subtle, deniable obstacles. They made her work schedule impossible to work around her treatment appointments. They questioned her need for so much time off. They suggested that maybe this wasn't the right time for her to be working, with a tone that implied she should resign. They created an environment of suspicion and pressure that made it clear that her job and her company was fundamentally incompatible with her cancer treatment. So Michelle quit. She gave up her health insurance. She gave up her income. She gave up her career at the moment when her family needed her income the most. But she gained something. She gained time. Time to fight. Time to heal. Time to be a mother and a wife and a person going through the fight of her life. David's letter was powerful and heartbreaking in its honesty and vulnerability. He wrote in detail about what it was like to watch his wife go through aggressive chemotherapy, about sitting in waiting rooms hour after hour, watching the poison drip into her veins, knowing it was necessary, but feeling helpless to protect her from the side effects and suffering, about coming home and seeing her absolutely devastated by the treatments, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to do basic tasks because of the exhaustion and nausea, about the financial stress that mounted day after day as her income disappeared while medical bills continued to come, about feeling like he was failing his family because he couldn't figure out how to make it all work. "My wife is the strongest person I know," David wrote with intensity. "But I watch her struggle every single day. I watch her fight through the pain and the exhaustion and the fear. I watch her worry about money when she should be focused entirely on survival. I watch her push herself to care for our teenagers, even when she can barely care for herself. I watch her sacrifice everything, her career, her income, her sense of normalcy, and I watch her do it with grace that breaks my heart." He continued, "I don't know how to help her the way she deserves to be helped. I work and I try to handle things at home, but I feel like I'm drowning. I just want someone to see her, to recognize what she's doing, to acknowledge that what she's sacrificed deserves to be honored." Steve sat back in his chair after reading those words. He read the letter again, and then a third time. He felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that this man was asking for something that money alone couldn't provide. He was asking for his wife to be seen. He picked up his phone and called his team. "Find out everything you can about Michelle," he said. "I want to know her story. I want to know about her treatments. I want to know about her family. I want to know where they're struggling. And I want to do this quietly. No announcements, no media. I just want to know how I can help." Over the next week, Steve's team did the research. They found Michelle's social media, her hospital records with appropriate permissions, her financial situation. They learned that she was in the middle of her 6th chemotherapy round. They learned that the family was behind on bills. They learned that she was an exceptional person, a woman who worked even on days she was in pain, helping her community, mentoring young people, showing up with grace despite everything. Steve made a decision. He was going to visit her, not as Steve Harvey the celebrity, as a human being who wanted to encourage another human being going through the fight of her life. He arranged it carefully with David. "I want to surprise her," Steve said. "I want to come when she's home, when she's comfortable, when she doesn't know I'm coming. Because I want her to see that this isn't a performance. This is real. This is me, as a human being, showing up for her." The day of the visit, Michelle was at home recovering from her 5th chemotherapy treatment. She was bald from the chemo, wrapped in a blanket on her couch, watching TV with her teenagers. She was tired. She was in pain. She was trying to stay positive, but honestly just trying to survive another day. When Steve Harvey walked through her front door, escorted carefully by her husband who'd kept the secret perfectly despite his wife's suspicions, Michelle thought she was hallucinating. She actually said out loud, "Am I dreaming? Is the medication making me see things? This can't be real." But it was absolutely real. Steve Harvey was genuinely in her living room, and he walked straight to her, sat down beside her on the couch, and without any preamble or small talk, he said exactly what she needed to hear. "I know your story. I know what you've sacrificed. I know what you're fighting. And I came here to tell you that what you're doing matters, that your courage matters, that your family is unbelievably lucky to have you, that you matter." Michelle broke down completely. She cried in a way she hadn't cried since her diagnosis. Not sad tears, but relief tears, recognition tears, the kind of tears that come from finally being truly seen by another person. Steve sat with her for hours. They talked about her cancer journey, about her fears, about her hopes, about her family, about what she wanted for her future. And Steve listened, really listened, not with the ears of a celebrity interviewing someone, but with the ears of a human being present for another human being in crisis. Before he left, Steve did something practical. He gave her and David an envelope. In it was information about a cancer support fund Steve worked with, information about financial assistance, information about resources, and a personal letter from Steve explaining that he'd already made a donation to cover 3 months of their mortgage payments while Michelle focused on her recovery. "You don't have to worry about money right now," Steve said. "You focus on getting better. That's your job. Let me handle the rest." Michelle's teenager filmed the visit. Just a short clip, maybe 2 minutes, of Steve Harvey sitting with Michelle, holding her hand, telling her that her life matters. The teenager posted it to social media with a caption, Steve Harvey surprised my mom to tell her she's not alone in her cancer fight. This is real kindness. The video went viral immediately, and when we say viral, we mean at a scale that shocked everyone. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed over 5 million times across all platforms. Within 48 hours, over 20 million times. Within a week, it had exceeded 50 million views. It became one of the most shared videos of the entire year. It crossed demographic boundaries. It was watched by cancer survivors who cried, recognizing their own journey. It was watched by people whose loved ones were fighting cancer, giving them hope. It was watched by people struggling with medical crises of their own, making them feel less alone in their desperation. News outlets competed to cover the story. Steve Harvey surprises woman fighting cancer appeared on morning shows, evening news broadcasts, and major online platforms. But what was most remarkable was that the media coverage didn't focus primarily on Steve Harvey as a celebrity. Instead, the headlines and stories focused on the humanity of the moment. They focused on what real compassion looks like. They focused on the genuine need that exists for people going through medical crisis. The need to be seen, to be valued, to be supported not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. The response to the video was extraordinary and immediate. Cancer support organizations were flooded with donations within hours of the video going viral. People reached out to Michelle's family, offering help. People shared their own cancer stories in the comments, creating a virtual support community. A GoFundMe that friends set up for Michelle's mounting medical bills raised over $200,000 in the first week alone. Companies that found out about Michelle's story reached out, offering her job opportunities for when she was ready to return to work, with guaranteed flexible schedules and comprehensive health insurance that would cover her ongoing treatments. But more importantly, the video sparked a conversation about medical crisis and employment. People shared their own stories about having to choose between treatment and income. People talked about how unfair the system was. People demanded change. Steve used his platform to push for policy change. He advocated for protections for people undergoing medical treatment. He spoke about the need for more accessible health care, better family medical leave, and corporate responsibility toward employees facing medical crises. Michelle continued her cancer treatment. She completed 6 rounds of chemotherapy. She went through radiation. She endured surgery. And through it all, she had support: financial support, medical support, emotional support, community support. A year after the video went viral, Michelle rang the cancer center's bell, the bell that marks the end of active treatment. She was cancer-free, not just in remission, but officially cancer-free. And when she rang that bell, she thought about that moment when Steve Harvey sat in her living room and told her that her life mattered. She posted a follow-up video. A year later, her hair had grown back. She looks healthy. She talked about her journey, the fear, the pain, the sacrifice, the fight. And she talked about what the surprise visit from Steve Harvey meant to her. "When Steve Harvey came to my house, I felt like I wasn't invisible," Michelle said in the video. "I felt like someone saw me. Someone saw my fight. Someone recognized my sacrifice. And that changed everything for me, because it gave me permission to believe that I was worth fighting for, that my life had value, that I mattered." The follow-up video went viral too. The story of her recovery became as powerful as the story of her struggle. People celebrated with her. They cried watching her ring the bell. They felt hope knowing that someone had won against cancer. Steve attended Michelle's cancer-free celebration. It was a small gathering, her family, close friends, and medical team members who'd supported her through treatment. And Steve gave a speech about what Michelle's journey had taught him. "Michelle taught me something profound," Steve said. "She taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and showing up anyway. It's about sacrificing everything you have to fight for your life. It's about choosing to believe that you're worth fighting for, even when the system doesn't value you. And it's about allowing other people to see your struggle and support you." He paused, emotion thick in his voice. When I sat in Michelle's living room, I didn't think I was doing anything special. I was just showing up. I was just being present. But that simple act of being seen, of being recognized, of having someone acknowledge your worth, that changed her life. And that changed me, because it reminded me that real impact isn't always about big gestures. Sometimes it's about simply showing up and seeing another human being. Michelle became an advocate for cancer patients' rights. She wrote about her experience on a blog that gained a large following. She spoke at cancer support events. She became the voice for people going through what she'd gone through, balancing treatment with financial survival, fighting both the disease and the system. The original video of Steve's surprise visit became the most watched video on Steve's social media platforms. It surpassed interviews with celebrities. It surpassed comedy segments. It surpassed everything because it captured something raw and real, a moment of genuine human connection and compassion. Years later, medical researchers studying the psychosocial impact of social support on cancer survival cited Steve's visit as a powerful example of how community support, recognition, and validation can positively impact patient health outcomes. The moment when Michelle was truly seen, recognized for her sacrifice, and valued as a person, had literal physiological health consequences. It reduced her stress hormones, improved her mental health markers, increased her sense of hope and agency, and gave her the psychological strength to push through the most difficult phases of her treatment. Michelle's story inspired others to share their own medical crisis stories publicly. A grassroots movement began organically, people reaching out to others going through medical treatments, showing up in person, being present, offering support and recognition. It became clear that one of the greatest unmet needs people have during medical crisis is simply to be seen and recognized, to have someone acknowledge their sacrifice, to be told that they matter and that their fight is important and that they're not alone in their struggle. Steve created a comprehensive medical crisis support initiative modeled directly on his personal experience with Michelle. It worked with hospitals and medical centers to identify people going through treatment who needed support. It connected people going through medical treatments with supporters and resources. It provided financial assistance for medical bills, mental health support through trained counselors, and community connection through support groups and volunteer networks. In the first year of operation, it helped over 2,000 people navigate medical crisis. In the second year, that number grew to over 5,000 families. Michelle remained cancer-free for years after her treatment ended. She returned to work when she was ready, with a company that genuinely valued her and supported her health needs. She had both her health and her financial stability restored. But more than that, she had been given something far more valuable that couldn't be purchased with money. The transformative knowledge that she mattered, that her sacrifice had been witnessed and honored, that she wasn't invisible or forgotten. She was seen and valued by thousands of people. Years after the surprise visit, Michelle published a book about her cancer journey. In the acknowledgments, she wrote about Steve Harvey. "Steve Harvey didn't have to show up at my house," she wrote. "He's one of the busiest people in the world. He could have sent flowers or a donation, but he came in person. He sat with me. He held my hand. He cried with me. And he made me believe that I was worth fighting for. That book, this recovery, this life I'm living now, none of it would have been possible without that moment when I felt truly seen. Thank you, Steve, for seeing me when I needed it most." The story of Steve's visit to Michelle became a teaching moment in medical schools, nursing programs, and healthcare administrator training. It was used to illustrate the importance of the human element of care, the fact that healthcare isn't just about medications and procedures. It's about recognizing the humanity of the person undergoing treatment. A decade after the original video went viral, Steve and Michelle did a follow-up interview. Michelle was not just cancer-free, but thriving. She was married, her teenagers were in college. She had a job she loved, and she was doing advocacy work to help other cancer patients. And when asked what changed everything for her, she pointed back to that moment, when Steve Harvey walked through her door and made her feel like she mattered. Everyone talks about the financial help, Michelle said, and that was important. But what really changed my life was being seen. It was knowing that someone cared enough to show up. In that moment, I stopped feeling like a burden. I stopped feeling like I was holding my family back. I felt like a person worth fighting for. This is the power of presence. This is what happens when someone with significant resources and visibility chooses to show up in person to another human being, chooses to really see them beyond their circumstances, chooses to acknowledge their worth and their struggle in a way that can never be achieved through financial transactions alone. This is what Steve Harvey discovered when he sat down and read David's letter about his wife fighting for her life against impossible odds. And this is the story of how one act of genuine human compassion and presence, a choice to simply show up, became the most viral moment of Steve Harvey's entire career. Not because it was a carefully orchestrated grand gesture designed for maximum impact, but precisely because it was real, raw, authentic, and deeply, profoundly human. This is what it means to truly see another person and acknowledge their worth. And sometimes, more often than we realize, that simple act of seeing and being present, that's all it takes to change someone's entire life. More importantly, that simple act of genuine human presence and recognition changed everything in the life of one woman fighting cancer. And that's all we need to understand about the power of seeing another person and choosing to show up.